All right, good morning, everyone, and thank y'all for joining us for our Beef Brunch news update on Tuesday, March 16th. My name is Ashley Edwards, and with me are Jason Holmes, Lee Falk, and Vince Desatel. Lee, I'm going to let you get us kicked off today, if you don't mind giving us an update for the northwest part of the state.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be with y'all today. Kind of a wet day up here, and that would sum up the pasture conditions up here in our part of the country. We had a pretty good dry spell. Things dried out quite considerably there for about a week and a half or so, and actually got to where we actually needed some moisture, and we started to get some rain in this past few days. And so it's definitely improved pasture conditions. Pasture conditions are very good. Ryegrass is looking really good. It's a great time of the year. Everybody looks forward to spring, and it seems like it's upon us now. Ryegrass, as far as recovering from the snow and ice, seems like it's progressing well. Hadn't seen a ton of damage, long-term damage on ryegrass and clover fields. Saw a bunch of clover twisted up. We may have talked about that in the last news update. Twisted up from the extreme cold, but it seems like it's come out of it. The white clover I've looked at so far, conditions are really good. Cattle are starting to look good. They're getting that springtime look about them, if you know what I mean. A lot of people getting out trying to work cattle up here in the northwest part of the state. Took advantage of the dry period to get some of those spring works done and everything. Of course, cleanup continues from the damage due to the ice storms and snowstorms. I think that's going to be a constant cleanup for a lot of folks. It's really going to take some time to get over that event and everything. So things are looking good up this way. A lot of people are getting some pre-emerge out. We measured some soil temps last week, and I'm sure this week we'll have some crabgrass emerge. If we didn't have some late last week, these 80-degree days really brought it on in hay fields and pastures. So kind of get closing the window on those pre-emerge options in your hay fields and stuff like that. We do have some people out there treating buttercup. There's still starting to see a little buttercup flower, but still people out there getting some treatments out there on that, trying to control in the pastures. Overall, pretty good shape. If we can avoid this bad weather they've been forecasting in our part of the country for the next couple of days, we'll be doing good. But it's springtime, and that just comes with the territory in our part of the world. That's all I've got, Ashley.
All right, thank you. Vince, I know you probably have had a few more warm days than what we've had up here, but do you mind going ahead and doing our Central and South Louisiana update, please?
Sure, Ashley. Thank y'all for having me. And yeah, it's been, kind of shocking off, since the ice storm. It was dramatically cold and icy, as, not what y'all experienced in the northern part of the state, but, go back over it, it was 2 inches of ice, and then we went to 70 degrees 4 or 5 days after the ice storm. And it's been 70 and 80 degrees since, basically, with some intermittent rains. We really hadn't had much rain since the ice event, so we really dried out. And here the last couple of days, we've been having some intermittent showers with a front kind of hanging over us. So it's been really warm. Pastures are greened up. There's, as Lee mentioned, about buttercups, we're a sea of yellow right now. So we have a lot of buttercup down here, and but folks have been getting out and fertilizing, putting that last shot of top dress on ryegrass, and things are really moving on, and cows are getting that look, and we're probably heading towards the end of the spring calving season. Lots of calves on the ground right now that healthy, and unfortunately those that calved in the ice event, that some of them were forced stress calvers, so we had some losses there. And as y'all were alluding to before we got on the conference, about some of the estimates of damage and livestock loss. We were fortunate in our areas. We had, some poorly managed herds that, that was a lot of death loss, but as the most part, those herds that are managed nicely and are taken care of, we had minimal losses. So With that being said, we've got a lot of spring activity going on in the central and south part of the state. We have, a vast array of crops grown here, from rice and sugarcane and corn being planted right now, and rice is being flown in, water seeded, and even some dry planted rice, as early as we are here in mid-March. They typically can't get in there until early April. So lots of activity in central and south Louisiana with, the row crops and agronomic crops hitting the fields. And sugarcane, I know this is a beef cattle talk, but sugarcane is an important crop to our area. And it was the ice, we got down to 20 degrees for a couple of days, and it was a critical timing, for that sugarcane to start regrowth, and it's a tropical crop. So things are looking good in that area, and there looks like there's minimal loss there. So, but anyhow, with that being said, a lot of spring working going on, like Lee said, and here as well. Cattle market, good calves here. The local barns are still bringing really good money. The lower ended calves are not doing so well. So that's the talk you hear on the street, that calves are still, not bringing good money to the barn. But that's not true for the most case, because if you got good calves that are managed, that have a couple of rounds of shots in them, and been given the opportunity to eat some crib feed, those calves are bringing really good money in the $1.50 to $1.60 range for 4 and 5 weights. So there's a lot of opportunity there if people have calves ready to sell from the late summer and fall crop. So some pre-emerge applications going out on hay fields. We got a lot of questions, right? At our area, we generally start too late with that, so we have a uphill battle with some of our hay producers that that don't really get into the management scheme of early season treatments. But we are doing some of that right now, and people are being proactive. There's some fertilizer going out on some hay fields already, so look forward to an early spring, as has been forecasted. So hopefully that gets us going in the right direction, and we end this mask mandate, and we're moving out of phase 3 here shortly, where people can get around and do things as normal. So that's about all I have.
All right, so since you mentioned mask mandate and us getting out and doing normal stuff, I'm going to go ahead and jump in ahead of you, Jason, and talk about a few events really quick. So tomorrow, we do still have some virtual events occurring. Tomorrow being one of those, the Acadiana Beef Cattle Producers Field Day is going to launch virtually. Again, that's tomorrow, March 17th. It's going to be on multiple websites or multiple places on the AgCenter website, but you'll be able to find it on the Beef Cattle page as well as our YouTube channel, and I will have several of those links in the video and podcast description for us. The Dean Lee Beef and Forage Field Day will also be virtual. That is going to launch April 8th. We will have another news update between now and then, but I want to go ahead and put that on your radar. So again, both of those, the Acadiana and the Dean Lee Field Days, are going to be virtual, and we will have all those linked and get all those to you. And then, Lee, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and mention our events coming up at the Hill Farm. So we have our artificial insemination class coming up. That is going to be April 21st through the 23rd. Lee's our main contact for that, but you can reach out to Jason and myself as well. We'll probably send you over towards Lee. So go back to that slide that I always have at the beginning of these news updates, and his contact is on there. If you're listening to this on podcasts, my information is always in the description, and you can reach out to me as well. So again, that's our artificial insemination class at the Hill Farm, April 21st through 23rd. And then our Beef and Forage Field Day at the Hill Farm is going to be in person. That is going to be Thursday, April 29th. So again, we've got more time, and we'll be back with you several times before that. But we are asking for RSVPs on the Beef and Forage Field Day there at the Hill Farm, since it is in person, and we do still have to keep COVID in mind. So if that's something that you go to every year and you know for sure you're going to be there, go ahead and reach out to Lee for that as well. All right, Jason, it's your turn for the Northeast region update as well as our markets.
So before I get into that, I'm going to touch on a couple of things that Lee said. So if you go to the Hill Farm Beef and Forage Field Day, you're going to see some plots there that Dr. Strahan has got, looking at some pre-emerges and some other things going out with that. So we've got some of those same chemicals looking at those plots over in this part of the state as well. So hopefully we'll be able to gather some pretty good information off of those two spots and be able to make some really good solid recommendations for some of those pre-emerges that are entering into the market. Just remember the cheapest way to control so we're still in a spot up here in North Louisiana where we can get out some pretty economical spray on this buttercup. It's not a sea of yellow like it is in Vince's part of the world just yet, so we can still get out about a pint to the acre of just a 2,4-D and be pretty effective on that buttercup. And if you've got white clover out there, that shouldn't be an issue. If you've got one of the other clovers, you might want to think twice before putting out that 2,4-D. But if it's a white clover, it can be pretty tolerant up to a pint. So be on the watch for that. We're going to do just a pasture field day over on this side of the state this summer, looking at those plots similar to what Lee's going to have over at the Hill Farm Field Day. So y'all will appreciate this. So I was noticing in Vince's picture there that he's got his ceiling fan on today. So I feel like it's pretty warm down there in Vince's part of the world. I hadn't seen that ceiling fan on in the last few news updates. So up here, Lee, I think you'll appreciate this. This is kind of the time of the year that our weather gets pretty drunk. We just don't really know which way it's going to go. So it's wonderful today. We've caught a little moisture. The sun's trying to shine a little bit. But if you look at the long range forecast, we'll be back down in the low 40s and highs in the low 60s by the weekend. So, and it just, you never know which way it's going to go. But in the interim, we'll sure take the mild temperatures and moisture we've had lately. As Lee said, our cool season annuals are looking very, very good, especially those guys that have gotten out there and took advantage of the little dry spell and got some nitrogen out. Those pastures are just looking exceptional. A lot of folks have already turned out on that grass, continuous grazing, and it's doing well. So if you look at across the plains, the spring grazing pastures are greening up, which Vince made the comment about those calf prices. So those good hard grazers, those guys in the plains are going to be looking for those calves to go on those big wide open grazing pastures in the plains. So we're happy that those are greening up and they're starting to pick up those cattle. And they'll pick those cattle up, hold them for about 45 or 60 days, get them straightened out real good, and then they'll be ready to go on to those wide open pastures. So same song, different verse. So we're still in steady fed cattle prices. We're in our 6th week. So I've read some commentaries out there that you would have to go back quite a ways to find where we've had 6 steady weeks of fed cattle prices. But we are in the same song. The National Weekly Cattle and Beef Summary showed 641,000 head harvested and dress weights of 831 pounds, which is pretty steady for the past couple of weeks. To close out the week last week in the 5-area feeding region, fed steer negotiated cash sales ranged 110 to 115 on a confirmed 82,000 head. Future prices moved, I assume, moved higher, so from some hope that this week might be the week that we see some movement in the cash market. We all keep holding out hope for that spring rally. We hadn't seen that yet, but we keep hoping that it'll be here soon. Most recent quote showed April on fed cattle unchanged at 119. Over the next couple of weeks, we would expect that the futures and the cash market will come together. So if they don't come together, I would assume that our futures markets are not working the way they should, but those should come together over the next couple of weeks. June is up $1.35 at 121.77, and August is up $1.07 at 120.85. 500 to 600 pound steers, medium and large, 1s and 2s, sold between 153.08 and 159.26. Ditto as what Vince said, that is $6 to $12 higher from the previous week. So that's a good sign in our calf market. 700 to 800 pound feeder steers, medium large 1s and 2s, sold between $123.79 and $132.61. So that's $4.50 to $10.50 higher than the previous week. Most recent quotes on that same class of cattle showed April trading up $1.07 at $144.30, May up $1.57 at $149.95, and as Lee and I were talking before we started recording, August is up $1.37 at $157.95. So those 7 and 8 weights are looking extremely attractive out starting in August. Lean cull cows 2 to 3 cents lower from the previous week, so they're still ranging 52 to 57 cents a pound. So even though they are trading off a little bit, that 52 to 57 is still some pretty decent prices on some lean cull cows. So on our feed stuff, before I get into the prices, I think there's two things that we need to pay close attention to that, and we all know that these feed stuff prices are going to start having a major effect on cost of gain in the feed yards over the next couple of months. And they're working through a lot of that supply that they had, and are going to have to start purchasing some of these commodities, and it's going to have an effect on it. But I think there's two things that are happening. So we feed a lot of soybean products and we feed a lot of corn. So increased moisture in South America has led to soybean quality concerns during the harvest in Argentina and Brazil. So if you know anything about Argentina and Brazil, they are major players in the soybean market. So anytime you start hearing about quality concerns with soybeans in that part of the world, it's going to start driving futures higher on that particular commodity, which is what we're seeing. So those soybean futures are moving higher. The other thing is on corn. So if you look at the export pace on corn, there is still excellent demand for U.S. corn. So that's still a major driver behind those corn prices. So getting into our market prices, soybean meal down $5.10 at $439.10 a ton. Soybean hulls are steady at $155 a ton. Cottonseed meal down $5 at $455 a ton. Whole cottonseed steady at $320 a ton. Rice bran is steady at $140 a ton. 60% corn gluten feed meal is steady at $735 a ton. DDGs are down $1 at $239 a ton, and corn is up 10 cents a bushel at $5.71 a bushel. So it's good to see some of those commodities coming down just a tick, and it's good to see some of them kind of steadying out. But and we're still in a pretty hostile environment when it comes to feed. It's tough on these guys that are trying to get those commodities purchased and still trying to make a profit on these cattle. So it's tough. But with that, Ashley, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't really have anything else to add since we had all of those events earlier that I talked about. We'll make sure all of that is in the description on the video and the podcast forms. And we hope that y'all have a great rest of the week.